Hello and welcome to Creative Sparkle. My name's Holly and today we're doing an art journal prompt list. So grab your art supplies and let's get crafting. Hello and thank you for joining me today. So working in a non-recycled book, in a normal book, the first prompt is to prime your page to prepare for paint if needed. Now, I don't necessarily need to prime the page for this book, but I like to just because the pages are quite thin, so it just gives it that little bit more sturdiness after I've put that masking tape down the middle to keep the pages together. So once I've primed the page with white gesso, only one layer is needed, but if you are working in a normal sketchbook like I am, don't worry about priming the page if you are using paint. So prompt number 2 is to use fingers to rub paint of one colour into the background. So after the gesso is dried, I'm going to use this wild violet colour. And unfortunately, I'm sorry guys, but when I was deciding what colour to use, unfortunately I completely forgot I was supposed to be using my fingers. So I did use a paintbrush. Sorry about that. So if you can use your fingers, you could do that, but obviously every time I always say, use what you have available to you, and the prompts are just there to give you inspiration, so use what you want. So prompt number 3 is with the same colour as step 2 but darker, add stamping to the background as interest. So I've chosen this stamp set that I have and archival ink in the colour plum, and I'm using 3 of the feather stamps from this stamp set. Obviously if you want to use a stencil instead or just doodle on the background, just you use what you have available to you, just in a darker version of the colour that you've used for the background. Prompt number 4 is using a book or magazine text, cut out medium shapes and add to the page. So medium in size, obviously. So I've chosen to use those same stamps again in the same colour and just go onto that book page that I have. It's just something that I've used for an art journal book in the past, and the paper that I've taken out of the book is kept in my stash just in case I need it, really. So I've stamped those and I'm going to cut each of them out, and then I'm going to use Mod Podge to stick them down onto the page, so the colour won't run, thankfully, because it is archival ink. But you don't need to use a stamp if that's not what you want to do. You can use a punch to cut out shapes, use a scan and cut if that's what you have, or simply cut out shapes with your hand. You don't need to have the stamped image on there at all. So prompt number 5 is to outline your shapes with a similar colour to steps 2 and 3. So I've chosen a purple, and it's quite a dark purple, so again it matches what we've got in the background already, and I'm simply going to outline those shapes that we have. So you can outline them in something a bit more exciting if you wanted to use glitter, or you could use paint, so you don't have to use a pen like I have. Again, use what you have available to you. So I'm just outlining them in that fine liner, and I think it brings out those shapes quite well. So once we've finished that prompt, we'll move on to the next prompt, which is prompt number 6, and it's your focal image. So for the focal image, add an animal to your page. So as I've decided to go with feathers, I thought getting this napkin that I have with an owl on it would be a good idea. So I stuck it onto white card with Mod Podge and then cut it out with the branches intact as well, and it fits very well onto the page. I don't know how I managed that, but I've chosen something that fits perfectly onto the page. So I'm just sticking that down with the Mod Podge again. So you just choose whatever animal you have available to you. So number 7 is to draw parts of your chosen animal elsewhere on the page, or you can add them to the page like I am doing here. So I did draw them off camera. It just would have taken quite a long time, and I didn't want to have to make you sit and watch that. So now that I've drawn them, I'm just going to cut around the edges, and I decided that I'm going to laminate the images because I wanted to make sure that if any other medium was going on top of them, I didn't want them to get smudged. So I'm using gel medium to stick the laminated pieces onto the page. So you can use colour if you wanted. I only used pencil because that's just how I felt like doing it today. So just do what you have available. So number 8 is to give your animal a name and incorporate it into the title. So make the name the title if you want to, or you can make a longer title. So I'm using these 3 colours in Distress Oxide to add to the yellow background that I've chosen for my title. And I've chosen to give my owl the name Oscar. So my title is simply going to be Oscar the Owl. So I'm going to use those 3 colours to make those 3 words, and then I will cut it out and get it stuck on the page. So the reason I've chosen the colours I have is because I think they go quite well with the focal image itself. So the yellow and the blues into greens tend to go quite well with the image itself because the feathers are those colours. So once I've got that cut out, I simply use some PVA or school glue, if that's what you call it, and just stick that down onto the back. So once your title's done, we'll move on to number 9, which is to find a way to add seeds to your project. I don't know how I've managed to find an animal that relates to seeds. That's quite fortunate, I think. So maybe keep that in mind when you're choosing your focal images, that we're going to be adding seeds to the page. I just got some linseeds out the cupboard in the kitchen. Use whatever you have available to you. If you don't have seeds, find something that looks a bit like seeds. And I'm just using gel medium to stick them down. You can use any glue to stick them down. Sorry, I used Mod Podge, which it doesn't really matter what you're using to stick them down. But I just put them randomly over the page, and you can use them however you wish. So the 10th and final prompt is to add white visibly to your project as a finishing touch. So I'm just using white acrylic paint, and when it says visibly, it just means like, rather than blending it into the background, make sure it's visible. So I'm just edging the bottom left corner and the top right corner in the white, and I was doing it with my finger but decided to go in with a paintbrush because it wasn't coming on thick enough, and I made a bit of a mess, so I'm just going to wipe that away. So that's the end of the project. I will put pictures at the end, and the list will be at the end as usual. If you liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you can catch us next time. If you do decide to take part in the prompts list, please do tag me on Instagram with the hashtag #SparklePrompt. I would love to see your creation. And I will see you next time, where we will turn your creative spark into creative sparkle. Thanks. Bye.